Hello and welcome to the Heat Check podcast, Miami Herald's Miami Heat podcast. I'm David Wilson. I'm joined, as always, on the other line by Anthony Chiang, our Heat beat writer here at the Herald. Anthony, what's going on?
Much, David. How are you?
Pretty good. Been a decent little week in the South Florida sports scene after some shaky starts to the year for a bunch of our teams down here. Most notably, the Heat we're recording this Wednesday morning. The Heat on Tuesday night get another one of their biggest wins of the year. Huge comeback against the Celtics at Miami-Dade Arena. Bam Adebayo with another monster game. And Miami kind of suddenly starting to creep back up in the Eastern Conference standings. Anthony, you were at the game on Tuesday night. I was paying attention to it while also covering the Panthers. So, in and out a little bit, didn't see the whole thing. What was, first of all, how did that happen? The Heat were down big early on in that one, stormed back with a 15-0 run in the second half. How did they flip the switch? We should say Jimmy Butler not playing for the Heat, Jaylen Brown not playing for the Celtics, Malcolm Brogdon also not playing for the Celtics. So some key guys missing for both sides. But still a huge win for the Heat. How did they pull that comeback off?
Yeah, the Celtics were without three starters.
Yep.
Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, and then obviously basically their sixth man and Malcolm Brogdon. So it's a very Celtics-light team. Yep. So I think we have to keep that in mind. The Heat were missing Jimmy Butler. Obviously, it's a big loss. But this was far from like a normal Heat Celtics game.
Yes.
But a big win nonetheless, because you need every win you can get if you're the Heat at this point, right? And they were down 14 early in the second half. They were down 10 with 8:47 to go. And it just really came down to Bam. Bam was just, in the second half, he was the best player on the court. He had 21 points and 12 rebounds in the second half after like a 9-point first half. He just really got aggressive. They really spammed the two-man game with him and Tyler Hero and really just went to it possession after possession. And Tyler did not shoot the ball well. He shot 4 of 19. Obviously, one of his worst shooting performances of the season. But just that action worked very well. And then finally, Hero made a big three at the end. And he also had the assist to Bam on that pick and roll for the game-winning basket there with like 20-something seconds to play. So it really came down to Bam. But Tyler Hero had something to do with it as well, even though he wasn't making shots. It was encouraging for Tyler because the Heat have been wanting him to become a better, not just rely on scoring. And he showed other parts of his game last night. And then they again overcame a terrible offensive performance. Their offense again was very, very bad. Very bad. I think it was their half court or their offensive rating was like 103 or something like that. Their half court offensive rating was in the 11th percentile. Just their offense has not been good.
Yeah, they won 98-95 2 days after they won 100-96. They haven't exactly been lighting the world on fire this week.
Their offense is not good at all, but their defense has been incredible at forcing turnovers. And they've been pretty good about limiting their own turnovers. So the Heat finished with 20 more field goal attempts than the Celtics. That's basically how they won the game.
Yeah.
If it's like only 10 more field goal attempts, they probably lose that by like 10 points, right? Those 20 extra shots made a huge difference. They forced 17 turnovers. They grabbed They grabbed 14 offensive rebounds. That's basically been their formula for success. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not a good shooting team, so we just have to take more shots than you, and that's how we're gonna beat you. And that's what they did again against Boston.
And we should say they're good down the stretch in the last two games. You mentioned Bam. It was two-man game both times, right? Against New Orleans, it was him and Kyle Lowry. They were on like 10 straight pick and rolls down the stretch.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And then on Tuesday, it was, like you said, him and Tyler Hero. Obviously, this kind of the story of the season has been that next step that he has taken. Jimmy Butler has obviously missed a lot of time. And even in some of the games he's played, he's been, he's missed kind of multiple fourth quarter. Like, there have been a couple of games there where he's played and has been like kind of, actually Bam had one too, I guess. But, he hasn't been there in closing time as much as the Heat obviously would like, where he's, one of the best closers in the league. And Bam has, by becoming just, I think we've talked about it a lot, a player on offense, he plays to his strengths, I think even more than he did in years past. And it has turned him into a really, really valuable closer for this team. And we saw it really in these last two games where no Jimmy Butler, who is, and again, this is a bad offense, and Jimmy Butler is the bailout guy he has been for basically the moment he got here. And it didn't matter because Bam Adebayo was the guy who could close games for them. And that is not, you could probably count on one hand the number of times we saw that before, I don't know, honestly, like the last couple months. And all of a sudden now it's kind of a regular occurrence for this team, which is, has played a lot of close games and needs all the options they can get in crunch time, given how many close games they've seem that it just seems like they're going to be like that all year.
Pretty much. Yeah. And
when you're a low scoring team with a bad offense, you're going to play a lot of close games.
Definitely. And this isn't the first year that the Heat ever run the offense through Bam. Like they've run the offense through Bam before, but before it was more of a facilitator, right? Like he was the hub of the offense. Now they're running the offense through him to score. And that's the big difference. Like he's getting to his spots consistently. It didn't matter who was guarding him last night, whether it was Robert Williams, Luke Cornett, Grant Williams, a small switching on him. Like he was getting to his spot, rising over his defender, and hitting that little mid,
I don't even know what to call his shot.
Like in the paint jumper, like right above the free throw line, pretty much. Like that's not an efficient shot. That's not really a good shot. Like defenses should want to force that type of shot. But Bam has become so good at it, especially like over the last month or so. I think he's shooting close to 60% on that shot. Which if he does that, like you're basically Kevin Durant, right? So yeah, like he has a go-to shot now, which is huge. And now he can work off of that. Like there was one time where he was a face-up against Cornett, and like Cornett was playing him in that shot, and he just drove right past him. So like now there's counters to when someone presses up on him to try to defend that shot, make it tough on him. He has something else he can turn to and kind of work off of it. So just his offensive game has grown so much. He's being aggressive, assertive. 22 shots last night. I think he's averaging. Pat Riley in the offseason said the goal was to get Bam 15 shots a game. Bam then said, no, I want to get around 18. He's at 16 right now, which is if I would have told you before the year that Bam was going to average 16 field goal attempts a game, that's an impressive number, and he's doing it consistently. And again, this season has been up and down for the Heat. It hasn't always been great, but I just keep coming back to now, like we knew Bam was an elite player, but you now know like he could be a top 10 player in the NBA when you take a defense into account. If he's not right now, he definitely has potential to be in a year or two. And that's huge for this team and his franchise.
Yeah, I mean the Draymond comparison I think is like ever since Bam became like a star level player has been like, can he be the Heat's Draymond or whatever has been like the notion that people have thrown around. Yeah. And he's probably never, Draymond was such a unique player, so I mean we're never gonna probably see another Draymond Green. Remember when Draymond first like broke out and every team, every draft was like trying to find
Draymond,
like I'm trying to think of who some of those guys were. Who was the Iowa State guy? Royce
O'Neal?
No, not Royce O'Neal.
Royce White. Royce White,
Royce White, Jared Sullinger, kind of, right? Like there have been a lot of guys.
Grant Williams, maybe a little.
Grant Williams, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think we've moved past trying to do that because
he's so unique.
He's so unique, and part of it is he got to play with Steph, and like those two are meant for each other in a way that like two stars I don't know have ever been. But Bam is going, that's the model for when you talk about can he be a top 10 player, like that's kind of the model, but he's a much better offensive player right now than I think Draymond ever was. And that defense, the question is how good does he have to be on offense where his defense, which I think most people who like really follow this stuff closely would agree he's definitely a top 10 defensive player and top 5 if you like throw out like just guys who are like Marcus Smarts and like guys who are just defensive specialists. And the question is how good can his offense get? And, is he ever going to be a great 3-point shooter? I've kind of given up on that. But as he adds more and more, what's the stat? I think did you write it this week or last week that takes more non-layup paint shots basically than anyone in the league. Like he's such a unique. Yeah. He's such a unique scorer around the rim now in ways that, like, when we would come on here for years and years and say, like, he needs to be more aggressive. How can he get better on offense other than, you need to add a 3-point shot? Like, these are ways that I don't know if I saw him becoming, like, a great offensive player. Like, I don't think anyone could have drawn up the, like, he's just going to become the best push shooter in the league. Yeah. Like, it's not it's a big part of his game. And now it's his signature shot in some ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't have, like, if you would ask me, like, what does Bam have to do to become an elite scorer? I would not have said, like, he needs to to develop a go-to shot, like, in the in-between range,
from, like,
the free throw line.
Yeah,
from like 8 feet away. Like, that's usually, again, that's not exactly what the
we would have said,
NBA is encouraging these
post
days.
Moves, a good 3-point shot, maybe a little bit better handle. Instead, he's kind of worked around that and done something totally different.
Yeah, and teams are starting to adjust to it, right? Like, teams are starting on the roll now, sending a third defender and kind of, like, peeling in to kind of close that space, close that pocket pass off a little bit. And that's where Bam then has to make the adjustment. He's a really good passer, so he can, right? So he's in a really good position to succeed. And maybe that's why the Heat really, like, encourage this development, this specific, like, development in his game, because if you do give him that pocket pass, he can make that shot now, or he can make the right read and pass out. That's kind of like it's kind of like the classic Draymond play, right? Where Draymond a lot of times will find Steph Curry or Clay for a 3 off that pocket pass, right? So, or if they don't help off of Steph and Clay, he has an open little floater. But it's just that Bam, like you said, is a much more efficient offensive player than Draymond at this point. And yeah, like.
He's frankly, like, a totally unique offensive player now. Like, you could throw out the Draymond comp like we just did. There's a little bit of, he's not passing the same way, but there's, like, a little bit of, like, Jokic where he gets the ball in, like, the mid post and can make the perfect pass. But I can't remember ever, like, a guy who's his greatest strength as, like, a dumber team than the Heat would have just said, all right, you're like Clint Capella, right? Like, you're just a pick and roll guy who's got a pretty good handle and you can be maybe the best roll guy in the league. But I can't remember ever a guy who is a kind of a lob threat roll guy. Draymond does a little bit of that, but a lob threat roll guy, a true center, who is also that good of a passer. Like, that makes him kind of something different than I think we've ever seen. We've seen great post, like, Team Olajuwon, right? Like, great post players who can pass. And then we've seen the Draymond type, like the guy who takes a once dribble and then swings it, but never a guy who can, like, kind of crash all the way to the rim and then make that decision whether he's going to go all the way and dunk it, take that little floater or push shot, or make the pass to the corner.
Yeah. They're different, obviously, and maybe this player wasn't as good of a passer, but do you see a little bit of KG in Bam's game?
That's like when he's had that, like, mid-range jumper thing coming a little bit, right? Yeah. Like, there is, And
I say that only because coming into the NBA, and even to this day, you ask Bam, like, who his favorite player to watch was and who he tried to model his game
after. You definitely see that he is mimicking KG in a lot of ways. He's not as, KG is the best, second best power forward of all time, probably. Right. Third best power forward of all time. But yeah, you can see that. And the NBA is different. Like, if Bam was playing back then, he probably would be doing more stuff like KG did then. But yeah, that's it's not a surprise that is Bam's favorite player to watch.
Yeah, and another improvement that he's made. I'm looking at the numbers right now. He's elite in isolation, which wasn't always the case. Mm-hmm. Like, you ISO him against a defender, he's basically scoring 1 point per possession, which is good. Like, that's above average, definitely above average among NBA players, and that's huge, because this team now, they're trying to. I was talking to Eric Spoelstra about this on the road trip recently. The offense has changed, right? We've talked about this on the podcast, like, less handoffs, more ISOs, more pick and roll, and they're playing to their best players' strengths. That's Jimmy, right? Jimmy's great in isolation. Yep. Bam now has developed a very, very good isolation game. Bam is really good in the pick and roll. Tyler's really good in the pick and roll. So they're really trying to tailor the offense to their best player strengths. Now you could say the results have not been good, right? But it's just weird because again, you look at those three players, Tyler, Bam, and Jimmy, and they're having some of the best seasons of their career. But the overall offensive numbers have not been great. But Eric Spoelstra, he still thinks that this offense can be above average.
Yeah, I mean, if this team was shooting like league average from three, like it would be a total. They still wouldn't be a great offense.
No, they would be above average though. They'd be around average. Yeah. If I was actually talking to this with Cooper Moore from Heat.com, if the Heat basically shot the same percentage they did last year from three, with everything else the same as it is this year, they'd be like a 12th, 11th best offense.
Yeah.
Basically what they were last year. It all comes down to missing those threes, unfortunately. It's like kind of simplistic, and I know there's more layers to it than that, but a lot of the offensive regression.
We said it's not the Stars' problem. Because again, the Heat's best players are not 3-point shooters for them. I mean, Kyle and Tyler are. But like you said, the Stars have done their part, and it's been, and it's not fair to pin it on the role players. They're role players for a reason, but like we've said it a million times. It was one of the, I think we did a whole episode about it a couple weeks ago. It was like the role players just haven't been as good as they were last year, and that doesn't mean they haven't been good. They've all had good moments and had been useful players, but they haven't been as good as they were last year, and that's the only reason the offense is significantly worse than it was last season.
Yeah, and I tweeted this a few days ago. I don't know if this still holds true after last night's game, but Jimmy Butler before last night's game was the Heat's top spot up 3-point shooter this season.
Yes,
that's insane. Like, I would have told you before the year, you'd have been like,
not a terrible percentage, honestly, for Jimmy. What was the number? It was like
35%,
yeah,
which is fine, which is good for him.
Jimmy.
But I think they had 4 guys over 40% last year, like Caleb, I think Tyler, Max Strus, and there was one other guy that was like over 40%. And now the top catch and shoot player on the team is Jimmy Butler at 35%. Like, that just says everything. It's honestly hard to explain. And guys have said, like, yeah, we're taking like basically the same amount of catch and shoot threes, but they're being generated differently now because the offense has changed, and that's kind of made things a little different. But it is still weird because you look at the shots they're taking and they're mostly open.
Yeah, they feel like they should be going in.
Yeah, exactly.
We should say with Bam, obviously it's not ideal that Jimmy has missed as much time as he has, but I think it has really let Bam flourish.
Yeah.
Right. He just is not getting to do all of this, particularly this end game stuff, if Jimmy is out there. And it's one of the reasons that I think, I'm kind of starting to. We'll talk more about the big picture of what they won 9 of 13, I think. Up to 6th in the standings as we record now, a game up of the Knicks, 2 back of Cleveland now for the 5th spot in the East. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of starting to feel like, this I still don't know if they're a real title contender, but I'm kind of starting to feel like they're one of the, top 10 teams in the league probably. And that is something that I don't know if at any point in the season you could say that. And the big reason I kind of feel that way is the fact that again, they still missed how much better would this team's record be if all their starters not had played every game, but had missed like the normal amount of time. And ultimately it might be a blessing for them down the road that it has let Bam become a more confident and well-rounded offensive player. And, we'll see how playoff time they can balance that with Jimmy's, his heavy isolation, slow it down style that has worked in the Heat's biggest moments during the playoffs. But it could, we'll have to see, but it could ultimately end up making the Heat a better team come playoff time than they are in the regular season right now.
Yeah, and they have an identity, right? And it's not a surprise that this is their identity, but defense. They have a top.
Yeah.
They're the 6th best defense in the NBA right now. And really good teams have like basically something they can rely on from night to night. And the Heat have that right now. Now, it is weird that turnovers are a big part. Like, basically, like, we take out turnovers from their defensive numbers, like possessions that only end with a free throw or shot. They have like one of the league's worst defenses, which shows you how much they rely on turnovers and creating them. But still, like, that's their formula for success right now. And it's not like a 2-week thing. Like it's been consistently
Yeah.
like throughout the year, through last 3 years really, and that's how they're winning games. So yes, their offense is not good. The hope is it'll continue to trend in a more positive direction. But their defense, they figured, early in the year we were talking about their man-to-man defense was like the second worst in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
They figured that end of the court out, which Eric Spoelstra always figures it out somehow with whatever personnel he has, and they're up to 6 right now, and they're probably, honestly, with the way they've been playing lately, probably finish in the top 5.
Yeah, so I guess the question now is how high can this team get in the standings? And there's, again, like it's a lot of time to go here. Trade deadline coming up, like you said. But the fact, they're 5 games above 500 for the first time all year. They are got that positive point differential finally, which they had not had for most of this season.
Their net rating though is 0
per game. Their net rating is 0. Okay,
it's exactly 0.
Exactly 0. They basically, they must have scored. I'm looking just on the ESPN standings page.
Yeah.
They're a 0.2 point differential, which means they have scored one more point, I think, than their opponents this year, probably, because they are.
Yeah.
So anyway, like I said, how high can they go in the standings, and what now? Like I said, trade deadline coming up. We did a couple of weeks ago. We talked about what they should be targeting, maybe around then. We'll do that again in a couple of weeks once the deadline is actually here. But you said you think they'll finish top 5. I kind of feel the same way. I was high on Cleveland at the start of the year, but it seems like they've just, they're still a young team, right? Like they were really riding high early in the year. Obviously, Kevin Durant being out for the Nets has brought, they were up at number 2, I think at one point. They've slipped a little bit. How high can this team get? How has your perception of this team's ceiling changed? And now, when we look at the next month, where we got the All-Star break, we've got trade deadline coming up. What should be the Heat's course of action here?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're within striking distance of 4, right? Even like if Brooklyn keeps playing, with Kevin Durant out, they've obviously slipped up a little bit. And
honestly, they're within striking distance. Like there's a pretty
of 3,
with 2.
No,
4.5 back of the Sixers.
Yeah,
I mean, a long
way to go.
Past, but
yeah, I mean, like 2 weeks ago, I would have said just avoid the play-in.
Yeah,
like that honestly is still like the goal.
If I'm the Heat. I mean,
avoid the play-in. You're so
Knicks,
close. Like you just don't want to be in the play-in. But
one Bam injury, and all of a sudden, you got ground to make up.
Problems. Yeah, but they do have a shot. Like definitely to catch Cleveland 2 back, and Cleveland hasn't been playing as well, obviously, and the Heat have been trending in a more positive direction. Brooklyn. So if I'm the Heat, I try to avoid the play-in, but aim for that home court in the first round. They were within striking distance. There's no reason why you shouldn't have your sights set on that. Like you're 3.5 back of Brooklyn. You're not going to get Kevin Durant for at least another week or 2. Try to make up ground right now, and really give yourself a shot in the final months of the regular season to play for home court in that first round. Considering the way this season started, that'd be a pretty big accomplishment for this team to climb all the way back to that point. So that's kind of where I stand right now. Like, number 1, avoid the play-in, but definitely try for one of those home courts. I think it's realistic at this point that they can get there. But I will say this as a disclaimer, and I think we've said this last week. I don't want to rain on people's parades, but they have won 15 of the last 22.
Been against some bad teams.
Against
and teams missing their stars, it feels like, obviously the 2 wins against the Bucks.
Yes.
Now they've been missing guys too, as we said.
Yes.
Jimmy not playing last night.
Yes. But yes, they haven't really had many. I don't know if you look down the list, and I don't know what you could say is a quality win. I know the Heat have been missing guys, but a lot of them have been against losing teams, and then the winning teams they have faced, the Clippers are missing Kawhi. The 2 wins against the Bucks, we've talked about this, are missing Giannis and Chris Middleton. 2 wins against New Orleans, they're missing Zion and Brandon Ingram. Yesterday, the Celtics are missing 3 starters. Like, those are all the winning teams they played, and basically they haven't been that same team when they played them. So, yes, there's something to be said about the Heat taking care of business because they weren't doing that earlier in the year. And also the Heat have been dealing with their own injury issues. But we have really yet to see them during this month-long stretch beat
Yeah.
a full strength, like a winning team at full strength, and that's crazy. But that's kind of where things are. So
Yeah.
yes, the Heat have been playing better, but the competition hasn't been great.
Yeah, we'll say also their schedule is relatively easy the rest of the way compared to I'm looking on Tankathon, and the
Yeah.
Sixers have the second hardest strength of schedule remaining in the NBA, and the Knicks have the hardest. So like there's definitely opportunities there. At the same time, the Heat also still has 3 games against the Sixers, 2 more against the Bucks, 2 against the
That could
Nets, 3
decide
against the
things.
Cavs.
That'll
Like that's
decide
going to
things.
decide
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And so the schedule now is so because so many guys are missing games, right? Like I
right.
think I
It's
wrote two
weird.
weeks
It's
ago.
almost like a roll of the dice any given night. It's just
Yeah.
like, are you going
I
to be
think
missing 1 starter, 3 starters, an all-star, 2 role
I just
players?
don't
Like,
know. I wrote January 7th, I believe, the day before they played Brooklyn, that they had the toughest schedule in the NBA remaining. And since then, they played, like I said, Brooklyn, 2 games against Milwaukee, 2 games against the Pelicans, a game against Dallas.
yeah, and like they kind
And
of
all
got through
those,
their toughest
they
stretch of
got
the
through the
season
toughest stretch.
without, yeah,
Yeah. So like I don't know if I'm ever gonna like refer to strength of schedule
I
again
know.
because you just in today's NBA you just don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, they're in a very easy division, which is nice.
And that could help them because that's a tiebreaker. Like if they
It
tie
is.
with the
They're
Knicks,
gonna win their division.
yeah, and the
I
Knicks
feel
aren't, and
pretty confident about that.
the Knicks are not. So that could be, if it comes down to them and the Knicks, like that could be the difference. So yes, divisions really don't mean much, but it might
Could
at
be
the
a
end.
tiebreaker. Yeah, like you
Yeah.
said. Trade deadline. Have your thoughts on what they should be looking at in the next month here changed at all?
Not really. I mean, they need offense, right? They need shooting. I know people want another starting 4. Caleb has been kind of dipped off a little bit the last few weeks. He's not 100%, even though he's playing. He's clearly not himself. And I spoke with him a few days ago. And he's like, it's just hard to catch a rhythm. Like I feel better, but I don't feel myself still. But I want to play. So yeah, like another 4, I guess. Even if it is not a starting 4, some depth at that position. Even though Haywood Highsmith has been playing better, he played really good last night. We should mention that.
Yep.
Give him some really good minutes. They do probably need another like experienced power forward option on this roster, and preferably he'd be a really good 2-point shooter. I know Bogdan Bojanovic, right? I keep getting mixed up with the other Bogdan.
Those 2 Bogdanovich. There's Bojan and Bogdan.
The one from Detroit. He would make sense. He would make sense, but defensively there's certain little, he's limited, rebounding not great, but the Heat need his offensive skill set. Like that would be a huge boost to the offense to have a player like that, whether he starts or not. How Spo can utilize him would be, that's kind of like Spo loves players like that, where he could be creative and
I love Bojan. I think like he is, and honestly, I don't think he's like, I don't know what the numbers say, but 6'7" long arms. Like he's not a total. It's like and he can move better than Duncan. Obviously, that was always the thing with Duncan. It's like, he's so big, he should be able to be okay. But like, I don't know. I kind of like Bojan as a. I don't know what you have to give up for him, and I think there will be kind of a bidding war for him. Weirdly,
yeah, he's a hot name.
Sounds like it's going to be a pretty quiet trade deadline, and he could be one of the biggest fish out there. So yeah, I kind of like. I've always liked him as a player, and like you said, I think Spo would just like adore him.
Yeah, and his defensive metrics aren't bad. Like, he's not Caleb Martin, but his defensive metrics aren't bad
for a bench 4, right? A bench forward, yeah.
Right. So he'd be a kind of I think a really good fit for what this team needs. But like you said, would the Heat have to give a first-round pick for him? Would they have to give this year's first-round pick? Would the Heat do that? Right. I mean, that's kind of. I know the Heat don't like. The draft for this team is not a big deal, but that's an asset that you could use if someone else becomes available in the offseason, right? So I think that's kind of the dilemma the Heat are in right now. Is like, okay, we want to win now, but is it worth giving up an asset that we can use down the road if the improvement is not going to take us to the next level of being a true championship contender? It's not going to make that big of a difference. So like, you don't want to punt on the season, but you also have to look long term as well. And I think that's kind of where the Heat are right now, and that's a decision they have to make as the deadline approaches.
All right, you got any final thoughts on Tuesday night or Anything from the last week? We didn't really talk about any of the other games this week. Obviously, got blown out by the Mavs on Friday.
Yeah.
Got a win against a shorthanded Pelicans team on Sunday, and quite an ugly game that the Heat pulled out in the end.
Yeah. I think that the Pelicans' offensive rating in that one, half-court offensive rating, was in the first percentile.
And what the Heat's was like the third or something, right?
Yeah, it was just atrocious. Like just an awful game. I mean, yesterday it wasn't much better. I mean, it was better, but it wasn't much better.
They got an identity though, like you said, and that's really what matters.
That's what Spo said. If we have to win ugly, so be it. And that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
So.
All right, you can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chiang. You're going on this road trip next week?
I'm actually not. Barry Jackson will be.
Barry Jackson, a classic Barry Jackson road trip. When we talk about actually next week is going to be.
It's a big.
Well, they won't have played. They'll play Cleveland by the time we record next time, but 4 games in a row: Cleveland, New York, Milwaukee, Indiana. Those are when we talk about those games that could determine playoff seeding. Those all 4 of those count. So, like you said, this is the toughest stretch of the Heat's schedule on paper over these last couple of weeks. But a week like next week, or whatever, the next 2 weeks, could be one of the most important when we look at where this team is going to wind up. Anyway, thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.